My name is Zachary. I'm 63 years old, and 3 days ago, my son Jack threw a glass of water in my face. Not by accident, not in anger, but with the cold, calculated certainty of a man who thought I had nothing left to fight back with. He stood there in my kitchen, the kitchen I built with my own hands 30 years ago, and he looked at me like I was already dead. His wife Penelope watched from the doorway. She smiled. They thought I was finished, powerless, a trembling old man that could shuffle off to some facility while they carved up everything I'd spent a lifetime building. What they didn't know, what Jack couldn't possibly know, is that some signatures can't be forged, some accounts can't be touched, and some decisions, well, some decisions are still mine to make. By the time my son realized what he'd done, I was already 3 moves ahead. And what I took from him, he'll never see it coming. This is the story of how a son tried to bury his father alive, and how that father taught him that dead men can still bite back. If you want to see how this ends, how a man everyone counted out takes back everything without throwing a single punch, then you need to subscribe right now. Hit that bell icon because the story drops in the next 60 seconds, and I promise you, what Jack discovers about his father will haunt him for the rest of his life. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever been underestimated by someone you loved? Because this story is for every person who was ever written off, dismissed, or thrown away. Let's go. The water was cold. That's the detail I remember most clearly. Not Jack's face, though that was cold too. Not Penelope's barely concealed smirk from the doorway. Not even the silence that followed, thick and suffocating, like the air before a storm. No. What I remember is the cold water running down my cheeks, dripping off my chin onto the kitchen floor. My kitchen floor. The tiles I'd laid myself in 1994, right after Maya was born, and we'd decided to renovate instead of move. I didn't wipe my face. I just stood there, looking at my son, while the water soaked through my shirt collar. You've been dramatic, Dad, Jack said, setting the glass down on the counter with a decisive clink. Like he'd just won an argument, like throwing water in your 63-year-old father's face was a reasonable response to a simple question. All I'd asked was why they were selling the lake house. My lake house. The cabin where I'd taught Jack to fish when he was 7. Where we'd scattered his mother's ashes 5 years ago, watching them drift across the water at sunset while he held my hand and cried. The market's good right now, Penelope said, from her position by the door, always standing back, always watching, always calculating. It's the smart financial move, Zachary. You understand that, don't you? The way she said my name, Zachary, not Dad, never Dad, made it sound like she was talking to a child or someone senile. I understand that it's not yours to sell, I said quietly. Jack's jaw tightened. Dad, we've been over this. You gave me power of attorney last year. Remember, after the incident. The incident. That's what they called it. The day I'd forgotten to turn off the stove and burned a pot of soup. One pot. One time. I'd been distracted thinking about the anniversary of Sarah's death. And yes, the smoke alarm had gone off, but I'd handled it. They'd handled it differently. Within a week, Jack had consulted an attorney. Within a month, I'd signed documents I barely remembered reading because they'd assured me it was just a precaution. Just to make things easier. Just in case. Just. 1,000 small justifications that added up to this. My son standing in my kitchen, water glass in hand, looking at me like I was an inconvenience he was trying to manage. The power of attorney doesn't cover property sales without my consent, I said. Nina made sure of that. Penelope's expression flickered just for a second. Nina? My attorney, I said. I thought David was your attorney, Jack said, naming the family lawyer, the country club friend who played golf with him every Thursday. David handles some things, I agreed. Nina handles the things that matter. The silence stretched out between us. I could see Jack processing this, trying to figure out if I was confused or if there was something he'd missed. There was plenty he'd missed. Look, Dad, he said, his voice softening into that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. We're not trying to upset you. We just think, Penelope and I both think, that maybe it's time to simplify things. Consolidate. The lake house is expensive to maintain, and you're not really up there much anymore, and you need the money, I finished. His face flushed. That's not... It's fine, Jack. I'm not an idiot. I turned away from him, finally wiping the water from my face with the kitchen towel. I'll think about it. Dad, we've already accepted an offer. I turned back, and something in my expression must have stopped him mid-sentence. You'll think about it, I repeated. Not a question. For a moment, just a flash, I saw uncertainty in his eyes. A glimpse of the boy who used to ask my permission before making decisions. The son who'd valued my opinion. Then Penelope cleared her throat, and the moment vanished. We're trying to help you, Zachary, she said. We're trying to make sure you're taken care of as things progress. As things progress. As I decline. As I become the burden they're already treating me like. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the truth I'd been avoiding for months. She wasn't cruel. She was efficient. Cold, yes, but not malicious. This wasn't personal to her. I was simply an asset to be managed. And Jack, my son had married a woman who saw his father as a line item on a spreadsheet. I'm going to my room, I said. Dad, we need to finish this conversation. No, I said, we don't. I walked out of the kitchen, my wet shirt clinging to my back, their voices dropping to whispers behind me. I heard Penelope say something about accelerating the timeline. I heard Jack respond with something about talking to the doctor. I heard them making plans for me, about me, without me. And I felt something inside me shift, something final and irreversible, like a bone settling after a break. I'd raised Jack to be strong, independent, a man who could stand on his own. I'd succeeded, apparently. He was strong enough now to stand on my neck. In my bedroom, the master bedroom I'd shared with Sarah for 38 years, I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let myself feel it. Not the anger. That would come later. First came the grief. My son had thrown water in my face, had looked at me with contempt, had discussed my future, as if I weren't standing right there, as if my voice didn't matter, as if I were already gone. When had I become invisible to him? I pulled out my phone. Yes, I had a smartphone, despite what they seemed to think, and opened my messages. There was one from Maya, my 16-year-old granddaughter, sent this morning. Grandpa, can you help me with my college essay tonight? Mom and Dad are being weird about it, but you always know what to say. At least someone still valued my mind. I texted back, of course, sweetheart. Come by around 7. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up a folder I'd created 6 months ago. The one labeled Household Expenses that actually contains something very different. Documents, agreements, contracts, evidence. I'd known something was wrong for a while now. The way Jack had started making decisions without consulting me. The way Penelope had begun scheduling appointments without asking my availability. The way they both started speaking more slowly around me, enunciating, as if I were hard of hearing or simple. So I'd started paying attention. I'd started keeping records, and what I'd found had broken my heart even before today. But now it made me dangerous. I pulled up the email I drafted to Milo last week, my old business partner, my friend of 40 years, the man who'd helped me build the company from nothing. The email I hadn't sent yet because some part of me had still hoped I was wrong about Jack. My cursor hovered over the send button. Outside my door, I heard Jack and Penelope's footsteps on the stairs, heard their bedroom door close, heard their muffled voices through the wall, still discussing me, still planning. I thought about the water on my face. I thought about my son's cold eyes. I thought about Penelope's smile, and I clicked send. The message was simple. Milo, it's time. Execute Plan B. I'll call you in the morning. Set. Plan B. The failsafe we'd built into the company structure 5 years ago, when I'd first started to see the changes in Jack. When I'd first worried about what might happen if he ever turned into someone I didn't recognize. I'd hoped I'd never need it. But hope, I was learning, was a luxury I could no longer afford. I closed the laptop and sat in the growing darkness, listening to my son and his wife plan my obsolescence. They thought I was powerless. They thought the tremor in my hands meant the power had shifted. They had no idea what I still controlled. They had no idea what was coming. I didn't sleep that night. At 2:47 a.m., I was still sitting in my study, the small room off the master bedroom that Sarah used to call my cave, surrounded by file folders and documents that Jack and Penelope had probably forgotten existed, or maybe they'd never known about them at all. The house was silent except for the old furnace clicking on periodically and the occasional creak of settling wood. Through the wall, I could hear Jack snoring, steady, peaceful, unburdened. I envied him that peace. On my desk was the file cabinet they thought contained old tax returns and expired insurance policies. It did contain those things on the top 2 shelves. The bottom drawer, though, the bottom drawer was different. That's where I kept the things that mattered. I pulled out a thick manila folder labeled Company Final. Inside were documents I'd reviewed dozens of times over the past 5 years but never acted on, until now. The master copy of the operating agreement for Sterling and Associates, the consulting firm I'd built from scratch 42 years ago. The company Jack now ran as CEO, the company he thought he controlled. I flipped to page 17, section 8.3, and read the clause I'd written myself in 2003. In the event that the founding principal determines at his sole discretion that the company faces imminent reputational or financial harm due to leadership decisions, said founding principle retains unilateral authority to dissolve the current board structure and assume direct operational control for a period not to exceed 12 months, during which time restructuring protocols outlined in Appendix F shall be implemented. Jack had never read Appendix F. I had written it specifically for this moment I prayed would never come. The moment when my son became someone I didn't trust. I set that folder aside and opened another one. This one was thinner, more recent. It contained printouts of emails I'd obtained through perfectly legal means. I still had administrative access to the company email system, a fact the IT department had never revoked because I'd set it up for emergency purposes back in 2020. Emergencies like discovering your son might be destroying everything you built. The first email was from 3 months ago. Jack to Penelope. Met with the elder care attorney today. He says we need documented evidence of cognitive decline to move forward with guardianship. Can you start keeping a journal? Anytime Dad seems confused or forgetful, write it down with dates. We'll need at least 3 to 4 months of records. I read that email 17 times now. Each time it hurt the same. My son wasn't worried about my health. He was building a case against me. The second email was worse. Penelope to Jack 2 weeks ago. Your father called Nina again today. That's the third time this month. I don't know what she's telling him, but we need to accelerate the timeline. David says once we have guardianship, we can revoke any conflicting POAs. But we need to move fast before he does something to complicate things. Something to complicate things, like refuse to be erased. But the third email, that was the one that had made my hand shake when I first read it. Jack to someone named RLEWIS at acquisitions-group.com. The owner is motivated to sell. Some family circumstances that require quick liquidity. If you can close within 30 days, I can get him down to $1.2 million for the lake property. He doesn't fully understand current market values. The lake house was worth at least $2 million, probably more. Jack wasn't just selling my property without permission. He was selling it below value and pocketing the difference. No, not pocketing. I clicked on another folder on my laptop. This one required a password. A password Jack didn't know I'd discovered by watching him type it in 3 months ago when he'd used my computer to check something real quick. People think all men don't notice things. People are stupid. The folder opened to reveal Jack's personal financial records I'd accessed through his cloud backup, using the family account he'd set up years ago when he'd said, "Dad, let me help you get organized digitally." He'd never removed my access, and what I found there made everything clear. A personal LLC registered in Delaware, Pembroke Holdings. Jack and Penelope's initials combined. Transfers from Sterling and Associates to Pembroke Holdings. Small amounts, never more than $15,000 at a time. Always coded as consulting fees or vendor payments, but they added up. Over the past 2 years, $187,000. My son was embezzling from the company I'd built. But why? Jack's salary was generous. The company was profitable. Unless I dug deeper into the files, and there it was. Bank statements showing payments to something called Riverside Gaming Partners. Payments ranging from $5,000 to $20,000, multiple times per month. My son had a gambling problem, and he'd been stealing from our company to cover it. I sat back in my chair, feeling the weight of it settle over me. This wasn't just about disrespect anymore. This wasn't just about a son who'd grown cold. This was about a man who was drowning and dragging everyone down with him. Part of me wanted to feel sympathy. Part of me, the father part, wanted to reach out, to ask what had happened, to offer help. But then I remembered the water on my face. I remembered Penelope's smile. I remembered being called dramatic in my own kitchen for having the audacity to ask questions about my own property. Sympathy could wait. At 6 a.m., I heard Jack's alarm go off through the wall, heard him shuffle to the shower, heard him get dressed. At 6:45, he knocked on my door. "Dad, you awake?" I didn't answer. He opened the door anyway, of course he did, and found me sitting at my desk still fully dressed from yesterday. "Jesus, Dad, did you sleep in your clothes? Are you feeling okay?" The concern in his voice would have sounded genuine to someone who didn't know what I knew. "I'm fine," I said. "Just working on some things." At 6 in the morning? He stepped into the room frowning. What things? Business things, I said. You wouldn't be interested. His frown deepened. Dad, you're retired. Remember, you haven't worked at the company in 3 years. I'm aware, I said, but I'm still listed as founding principal, still have certain responsibilities. Something flickered across his face. Uncertainty? Fear? What kind of responsibilities? I turned in my chair to face him fully. The kind that kick in when the company's reputation might be at risk. We stared at each other for a long moment. I don't know what you're talking about, he said finally. Don't you? I pulled out my phone and opened the photo I'd taken of one of his bank statements. Riverside Gaming Partners, ring any bell? His face went white. Actually white. Like someone had drained the blood right out of him. How did you... That's private. You can't... I can, I said quietly. I did. And now I have a question for you, Jack. When were you planning to tell me you've been stealing from the company? I haven't been stealing. I was going to pay it back. It's just temporary. $187,000, I said. That's not temporary. That's embezzlement. He slumped against the doorframe. For a second, I saw the boy again. The one who'd come to me when he was 12 and admitted he'd broken a neighbor's window with a baseball. Terrified but honest. That boy was gone. Dad, please, he said. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. The company, the mortgage, Penelope's... He stopped. Penelope's what? He shook his head. Nothing. It's nothing. Tell me. It's handled, okay? It's all handled. I just need a few more months and you need to resign, I said. The words hung in the air between us. What? Effective immediately. I'm assuming operational control of Sterling and Associates under Section 8.3 of the operating agreement. Milo will return as interim CEO. You're done. Jack's face transformed. The fear vanished, replaced by something ugly. You can't do that. I already did. I sent the paperwork to Nina last night. She's filing it with the state this morning. I'll fight this, he said, his voice rising. I'll get lawyers. You'll do what? I stood up, and despite the tremor in my hands, despite being 3 inches shorter than my son, I felt powerful. You'll explain to a court why you've been embezzling. You'll show them your gambling debts. Please, Jack, try. He stared at me, breathing hard. This is about yesterday, he finally said. About the water. You're being petty. No, I said. Yesterday was about disrespect. Today is about consequences. There's a difference. You're destroying me. I'm saving the company you've been looting, I corrected. But I'm not done. I handed him a second folder. This is the revised trust agreement. Your inheritance, the full estate, is being restructured into an educational fund for Maya, managed by me until she's 25. You get nothing until you've repaid every penny you stole, with 8% interest compounded annually. His hand shook as he opened the folder. The lake house, he whispered, stays mine, forever. And I'm adding a clause that prevents it from being sold or transferred to you or Penelope under any circumstances. Dad, you're killing me. I'm teaching you, I said, what it feels like to have your power stripped away by someone who's supposed to love you. The silence was deafening. Then Jack did something I didn't expect. He smiled. It was a terrible smile, broken and bitter. You know what? He said. Fine, you win. Take it all. But don't pretend this is about teaching me a lesson. This is revenge, plain and simple. You're just like me, Dad. Just like me. He threw the folder on my desk and walked out. I heard him storm down the stairs, heard the front door slam, heard his car start and pull away. And then I sat down at my desk and realized that my hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady. For the first time in months, they were completely steady. Maya arrived at 6:47 p.m., exactly 13 minutes early like she always did. She had Sarah's punctuality, Sarah's dark hair too, though Maya wore hers longer, usually pulled back in a ponytail that swung when she walked. She had her grandmother's eyes, sharp, observant, missing nothing. "Hey, Grandpa," she said, slipping through the door with her backpack. "Is Dad here?" "No, he left this morning. Haven't seen him since." Something flickered across her face. Relief, maybe. "Good," she said. "That stopped me. Good." She set her backpack on the kitchen table, the same table where Jack had thrown water in my face yesterday, and pulled out her laptop. But she didn't open it. Instead, she just stared at it, her fingers drumming on the closed lid. "Maya, what's wrong?" "How honest do you want me to be, Grandpa?" The question caught me off guard. "Always honest. You know that." She looked up at me, and I saw something in her eyes I didn't expect. Anger. Not at me. For me. "They're planning to put you in a home," she said. "Mom's already touring facilities. She showed me brochures last week and asked which one looked most dignified. That's the word she used, dignified. I should have been shocked. I wasn't. "I know," I said quietly. "You know," her voice cracked, "and you're just, what, letting them?" I didn't say that. She studied my face for a long moment. Then she reached into her backpack and pulled out a small red ledger, the kind with a leather cover and gold-edged pages. She set it on the table between us. "I found this in Dad's study," she said. 3 days ago. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for printer paper and it was just there, in his desk drawer. Not even locked." "Maya, you shouldn't—" "I know I shouldn't have looked," she interrupted. "But I did. And Grandpa, I think you need to see this." She pushed the ledger toward me. I didn't want to touch it. Didn't want to know what else my son had been hiding. But Maya was watching me with those sharp eyes, waiting. I opened it. The first page was a list of dates and amounts, all handwritten in Jack's careful script. September 2023, $8,500. Riverside, October 2023, $12,000. Riverside, November 2023, $15,500. Riverside. The gambling debts I already knew about, but I flipped forward. January 2024, $24,000. St. Catherine's Medical Center, February. 2024, $31,000. St. Catherine's Medical Center, March 2024. $28,500. St. Catherine's Medical Center medical bills. Massive ones. "Keep going," Maya said softly. I turned the page, and there, in Jack's handwriting, was a note that made my chest tighten. "Penelope, stage 2 lymphoma, diagnosed November 15th, 2023. Insurance covering 60%. Out of pocket estimated $180,000 over 18 months. Can't tell Dad. He'll want to help, and I can't be that son. Can't be the failure who couldn't take care of his own family. Figure it out. Fix it. Be the man he raised." I read it 3 times. My daughter-in-law had cancer. Jack had been covering the costs by stealing from the company, and he hadn't told me because he thought asking for help made him weak. "Did you know," Maya asked, "about Mom being sick?" I shook my head, not trusting my voice. Neither did I, she said. Not until I found this. They've been lying to both of us. She goes to book club every Tuesday. It's actually chemo. The room felt too small suddenly, too hot. How long have you known? I asked. 3 days, since I found the book. She pulled out her phone. But I've been noticing things for months. The way she's always tired. How she wears scarves even in summer. I think her hair's thinning. The pills in her bathroom, she says, are vitamins. She swiped through photos on her phone and showed me a screenshot of text messages between Penelope and someone named Dr. Morrison. Dr. M. Treatment is progressing well. We're cautiously optimistic about the response. Penelope. When can I tell my family? Dr. M. That's your call. But you're not terminal, Penelope. You're fighting this and winning. Penelope. Jack doesn't want anyone to know. He thinks it makes us look weak, vulnerable. She wanted to tell you, Maya said. Dad wouldn't let her. I closed the ledger and pushed it back across the table. Everything I thought I understood about the past 24 hours was shifting, reforming into something more complicated. Jack wasn't just cruel, he was terrified. Penelope wasn't just cold, she was sick and scared and being silenced. And I'd just stripped my son of his company and his inheritance while he was drowning in medical debt. Grandpa, Maya's voice was small. What are you going to do? Good question. What was I going to do? I'd started this for revenge, for dignity, for justice. But justice for what exactly? For a man who threw water at me because he was being crushed under pressure he couldn't share. For a woman who smiled because she was too exhausted to cry. I don't know, I admitted. Maya nodded slowly. Then she pulled out another piece of paper from her backpack. This one was folded, wrinkled, like it had been carried around for a while. There's something else, she said. Something I think you should know before you decide. She unfolded it. It was a letter, addressed to me, in Jack's handwriting. Dad, I'm writing this because I don't have the courage to say it to your face. I've been stealing from the company. I know you probably already know. You've always known everything, even when you pretended not to. Mom's sick, really sick, and I can't fix it, and I can't afford it, and I can't admit to you that I'm failing at the one thing that matters, taking care of my family. You taught me to be strong, to be self-sufficient, to never ask for handouts. And I learned too well, I think, because now I'm so deep in this hole, I can't see daylight. By the time you read this, I'll either have figured it out or lost everything. Either way, I'm sorry for what I've become, for what I've done to you, for the water. God, Dad, for the water. I love you, even though I've forgotten how to show it. Jack, the letter was dated yesterday, the day he threw the water. He'd written it before our confrontation this morning, before I'd stripped him of everything. Where did you get this? I asked. His desk. Same drawer as the ledger. I think... Maya's voice wavered. I think he was going to give it to you, but then you hit him first. I stared at my son's handwriting, at the words I love you, and felt something crack inside my chest. He's not a bad person, Grandpa, Maya said. He's just lost and scared and too proud to ask for help. I know, I whispered, because I'd raised him that way. I'd taught him that asking for help was weakness. I'd modeled strength as silence, resilience as isolation. I'd made my son in my image, and now we were both drowning because neither of us knew how to reach for the other. At 8:15 p.m., After Maya left with her completed college essay and a hug that lasted longer than usual, I sat alone in my study. The red ledger was in front of me. Jack's letter was beside it, and my phone was in my hand. I had 2 calls to make. The first was to Nina. "Zachary?" She answered on the second ring. "Everything okay?" "I need you to hold off on filing the paperwork," I said. "The restructuring paperwork. I was just about to hold off. For now, don't file anything yet." Silence. Then, "What's changed?" "Everything," I said. "Nothing. I don't know. Just give me 48 hours. Zachary, if you're having second thoughts, I'm having all the thoughts, Nina. Just hold off." "Okay, but the clock is ticking. If Jack gets his own lawyers involved, he won't. Not yet. Just trust me." I hung up before she could argue. The second call was harder. I pulled up Milo's number, stared at it for a full minute, then hit dial. "Z?" His voice was rough with sleep. "It's past 8. You okay?" "I need to ask you something," I said. "And I need you to be honest. Always." "When Sarah was dying," I said slowly, "did I ask for help?" Long pause. "No," Milo said finally. "You didn't. You shut everyone out. Told us you had it handled. Nearly destroyed yourself trying to be strong enough for both of you. Did you try to help anyway?" "Every day. You kept refusing. Said you didn't want to be a burden. Was I wrong?" "Yes," he said, without hesitation. "You were wrong. And we all watched you suffer because you were too goddamn proud to let anyone in." I closed my eyes. "I did that to Jack," I said. "Yeah," Milo said softly. "I know. How do I fix it?" "You start by telling me what's really going on." So I did. I told him about the ledger, about Penelope's cancer, about Jack's letter and Maya's revelation, and the water that had started everything and changed nothing and changed everything. When I finished, Milo was quiet for a long time. "So what do you want to do?" he finally asked. "I want to be his father," I said. "Not his enemy, not his creditor, his father." "Then be his father." "I don't know how anymore." "Yes, you do," Milo said. "You show up, you sit with him. You tell him the truth, that you're scared too, that you're proud of him anyway, that asking for help doesn't make him weak, it makes him your son." My throat felt tight. What if he won't listen? Then you keep trying. That's what fathers do. After I hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. Tomorrow, I would call Jack. Tomorrow, I would try to undo the damage we'd both done. But tonight, I let myself feel the full weight of what I'd almost destroyed. And I prayed it wasn't too late. I texted Jack at 6 a.m. "We need to talk. Downtown office, 10 a.m. Come alone." He didn't respond. At 9:47, I was sitting in the conference room of Sterling and Associates, the building I'd bought in 1989, the company I'd built from nothing, waiting to see if my son would show up. The room smelled like leather and old coffee. Through the window, I could see the city waking up, people rushing to work, living their uncomplicated lives. At 9:58, the door opened. Jack walked in looking like he hadn't slept. His tie was slightly crooked. His eyes were red-rimmed. He stood in the doorway, not quite entering. "I'm here," he said. "Say what you're going to say." I gestured to the chair across from me. "Sit." "I'd rather stand." "Jack, sit down." He sat. For a moment, we just looked at each other across the table. This table where we'd celebrated the company's 10th anniversary, where I'd announced my retirement 3 years ago, where we'd made 1,000 decisions together back when we were still on the same side. I pushed the red ledger across the table. His face went white. Maya gave this to me, I said, yesterday. She had no right. She had every right. She's your daughter. She's scared. And she's the only person in this family brave enough to tell the truth. Jack's jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. I read it, I continued. All of it. The gambling debts, the medical bills, Penelope's diagnosis. I paused. Your letter. He flinched at that. I wasn't going to give you that letter, he said quietly. I wrote it and then I couldn't. Too pathetic. It wasn't pathetic. It was honest. Same thing, isn't it? His voice was bitter. You taught me that honesty without strength is just weakness on display. I never said that. You didn't have to. I watched you bury Mom without crying once. I watched you run this company through 3 recessions without ever admitting you were scared. You taught me that real men handle their own problems. I was wrong, I said. He looked up sharply. What? I was wrong about all of it. I wasn't strong when your mother was dying. I was terrified. I didn't handle those recessions alone. Milo saved my ass more times than I can count. And the day we scattered Sarah's ashes, my voice cracked. I cried for 3 hours afterward, alone in my car, because I'd convinced myself that letting you see me break would somehow break you too. Jack stared at me. I taught you wrong, son. I taught you that asking for help was failure, that showing vulnerability was weakness. And now you're drowning because you learned my lessons too well. I'm not drowning, he said automatically. Jack, your wife has cancer. You're $200,000 in debt. You've been embezzling from the company. You threw water in your father's face because you were so desperate to maintain control that you'd rather destroy our relationship than admit you needed help. You're not drowning. You're already underwater. The words hung in the air between us. Jack's shoulders slumped. I don't know how to fix it, he whispered. Any of it. I do. He looked up, hope and skepticism fighting in his eyes. I pulled out a folder I'd prepared this morning. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to step down as CEO for 6 months, not as punishment, as a break. Milo will run operations. You're going to use that time to get help. Real help. Therapy for the gambling. Time with Penelope during her treatments. Time to figure out who you are when you're not trying to prove something. Dad, I can't just walk away from the company. You can. You will. Because if you don't, you're going to lose everything that actually matters. Your health, your marriage, your daughter, me. He flinched. Second, I continued, I'm paying Penelope's medical bills, all of them, through the family trust, anonymously if you want, but it's happening. I can't accept it's not for you, it's for her and for Maya. They don't deserve to suffer because you're too proud to let your father help his daughter-in-law. She's not your daughter. No, but she's family, and she's sick. And I have money sitting in accounts doing nothing while my family drowns in medical debt. So yes, Jack, I'm paying. Fight me on it if you want, but you'll lose. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked away. Third, I said, you're going to pay back what you took from the company, but we're going to structure it over 10 years, 0 interest, with payments adjusted based on your actual income. This isn't charity. You stole, and there are consequences. But the consequences don't have to destroy you. Why? Jack's voice was rough. Why are you doing this? I threw water in your face. I tried to take your house. I've been stealing from you for 2 years. Why aren't you just done with me? I stood up and walked around the table. Jack didn't move. I put my hand on his shoulder, the same shoulder I'd held when he was 7 and learning to swim. when he was terrified of putting his face underwater. Because you're my son, I said simply. And I failed you. I taught you that love had to be earned, that respect was more important than honesty, that strength meant silence. I made you think that asking your father for help was admission of defeat. It is, he said, but his voice broke. No, it's admission that you're human, that you're my son, that we're family, and family doesn't keep score. Jack's shoulders started shaking. Then he was crying. Real, gasping sobs that sounded like they'd been trapped inside him for years. I held his shoulder and let him break. I'm sorry, he kept saying. I'm so sorry, Dad. About everything. The water, the house, all of it. I'm sorry. I know, I said. I'm sorry too. We stood like that for a long time. Father and son, both broken, both trying to figure out how to rebuild what we'd nearly destroyed. Finally, Jack wiped his face with his sleeve and looked up at me. What about the trust? He asked. The inheritance restructuring? I pulled out another document. I'm giving you a choice. Option 1, the restructuring stance. Everything goes to Maya. You rebuild from zero, prove yourself, maybe earn it back someday. Or, option 2, we tear up the restructuring. You keep your inheritance, but there are conditions. What conditions? You go to therapy, real therapy, minimum twice a week for a year. You attend Gamblers Anonymous. You let me be involved in Penelope's care, not as a charity case, but as family. And every Sunday for the next year, you come to the lake house. We fish, we talk. You sit with the father you tried to erase, and you remember who you were before the pressure broke you. Jack's eyes filled again. And if I mess up, if I gamble again, then we deal with it together, like family, not like adversaries keeping score. He looked at the two documents, looked at me. I don't deserve this, he said. Probably not, I agreed. But love isn't about deserving. It's about choosing each other anyway. Jack picked up the second document, the one that gave him another chance. There's one more condition, I said. He tensed. What? You apologize to Penelope for making her hide her illness, for putting your pride above her health, for making her tour nursing homes for me while she was fighting cancer. You tell her the truth about everything, and you let her decide if she wants to stand by you while you figure your shit out. She'll leave me, he whispered. Maybe. Or maybe she's stronger than you think. But either way, she deserves honesty. Jack nodded slowly. Then he did something I didn't expect. He stood up and hugged me. Not a polite hug, a real one. Desperate and grateful and scared and hopeful all at once. Thank you, he said into my shoulder. Thank you for not giving up on me. Never, I said, even when you deserve it. We pulled apart. Jack looked at the documents, at the red ledger, at me. So what happens now? He asked. Now, you go home. You talk to your wife. You start fixing what's broken. I paused. And Sunday, 7 a.m., you meet me at the lake house. Bring your fishing rod. The one you gave me when I was 7. That's the one. He smiled. A real smile this time, broken but genuine. I'll be there. After he left, I stood alone in the conference room for a long time. Through the window, I watched him walk to his car. Watched him sit in the driver's seat for several minutes, phone to his ear, probably calling Penelope, probably starting the hardest conversation of his life. I pulled up my phone and texted Maya. Thank you for showing me the ledger. You saved your father, and probably me too. She responded immediately. Does this mean you're not moving to a nursing home? I smiled. Not a chance. Someone has to teach you to fish. Gross. But okay, love you, Grandpa. Love you too, Maya. I looked at the red ledger one more time, then dropped it in the shredder. Some records don't need to be kept. Some mistakes just need to be forgiven. Sunday morning arrived cold and gray, the kind of November dawn where the mist hangs low over the water and everything feels suspended between seasons. I got to the lake house at 6:30 a.m., half convinced Jack wouldn't show. The cabin looked exactly as it had for 30 years. Weathered cedar siding, the dock stretching out into water so still it looked like glass. Sarah's wind chimes hanging silent in the windless morning. I make coffee. Strong, the way Jack used to like it before Penelope convinced him to switch to some organic green tea nonsense. At 6:58, I heard tires and gravel. My son's truck pulled up and he stepped out holding the old fishing rod I'd given him when he was 7. The rod was scratched and faded, but he kept it. That meant something. "Morning, Dad," he said quietly. "Morning." We stood there awkwardly for a moment. Two men who'd spent the past week dismantling and rebuilding their entire relationship, now expected to just fish. "Coffee's inside," I said finally. "Thanks." We went through the motions, poured coffee, gathered tackle boxes, walked down to the dock without saying much. The silence wasn't comfortable yet, but it wasn't hostile either. We cast our lines into the water and waited. "Penelope knows everything," Jack said after about 10 minutes. I glanced at him. How'd she take it? Better than I deserved. He adjusted his line. "She cried. A lot. Said she'd been wanting to tell me for months that she was scared, that she needed me. But I was always so closed off. So she stopped trying." "Is she still in treatment?" "Yeah. 3 more months of chemo, then radiation. Dr. Morrison says the prognosis is good." He paused. "She wants to meet with you, to say thank you for the medical bills. I told her you were doing it anonymously, but she figured it out anyway. She's smart. Smarter than me, that's for sure." Jack reeled in his line slightly. "She also said if I ever hide something like that from her again, she's taking Maya and leaving. She meant it too. Good for her." We fished in silence for a while. A heron landed on the opposite shore, elegant and patient. "I started therapy," Jack said. "First session was Friday. Also started GA meetings." "How's that going?" "It's hard. Sitting in a circle with strangers, admitting I have a problem. Feels like failure." "It's not. You say that, but it feels like it." I set down my rod and looked at him. "You want to know what real failure looks like, Jack? It looks like me, standing in this exact spot 5 years ago, scattering your mother's ashes alone because I was too proud to ask you to come with me." He turned sharply. "You said I was there. You said we did it together." "I lied," I said. "You were there for the memorial service. But the actual scattering, I did that alone, at midnight, because I didn't want you to see me cry. I didn't want to burden you with my grief. So I robbed you of the chance to say goodbye properly. That's failure, son. Not asking for help." Jack's face crumbled. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Same reason you didn't tell me about Penelope. Pride, fear. The stupid idea that protecting you from pain was more important than letting you be part of mine. Dad, I'm telling you now, because you need to understand something. This thing we do, this shutting each other out, this pretending we're fine when we're drowning, it ends with us. You don't do this to Maya, ever. You let her see you struggle. You let her see you ask for help. You teach her that vulnerability isn't weakness. Promise me." "I promise," Jack whispered. We sat with that for a while. Then Jack's line jerked. "You got something," I said. He reeled it in carefully, a decent-sized bass, fighting hard. When he finally pulled it up onto the dock, we both stared at it. The fish flopped once, twice, then went still in his hands. "Remember what I taught you?" I asked. "Check for injuries. Remove the hook carefully. Return it to the water if it's not a keeper. And," he looked at the fish, then at me, "thank it for the fight, for reminding us we're alive." I nodded. Jack carefully removed the hook, whispered something I couldn't hear, and lowered the bass back into the water. For a moment it just floated there, stunned. Then it flicked its tail and disappeared into the dark water. "You think we can do that?" Jack asked quietly. "Just swim away? Start over?" "No," I said honestly. "I think we're going to carry scars. I think there will be hard days. Days when you want to gamble, or I say something that makes you feel small, or we both remember the water and the anger and wonder if we're kidding ourselves that this can work." Comforting. "But," I continued, "I also think we're both still here, still trying, still choosing each other when it would be easier to swim away. That has to count for something." Jack nodded slowly. "Milo says I'm doing okay at the company. In the new consultant role, I mean. Says I'm actually better at client relationships than operations. Milo's not wrong. You talk to him about me. Every day, he gives me reports. Makes sure you're not spiraling. That's," Jack trailed off, "invasive, controlling, overprotective. I was going to say kind of nice, actually. Knowing someone's watching. Someone who gives a shit if I make it." My throat tightened. "I've always given a shit, Jack. I just didn't know how to show it without making you feel like you were failing." "Yeah. Well, I'm learning to accept help. It's a process." We fished until noon, talking in fits and starts about nothing and everything. Maya's college applications, Penelope's treatment schedule, the company's Q4 projections, the heron that kept circling back, normal things, family things. At one point, Jack asked, "Do you forgive me for the water?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "I'm working on it," I said honestly. "Some days more than others. But I'm here. That's something." "It's everything," Jack said quietly. As we packed up the gear, Jack hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why didn't you just cut me off? You had every right. The embezzlement alone." "Because I looked at you and saw myself," I said. "Saw a man so terrified of being weak that he'd rather destroy himself than admit he needed help. And I realized that if I cut you off, I was just proving everything I'd accidentally taught you. That love is conditional. That family keeps score. That one mistake can erase everything. But I made more than one mistake. Yeah. And I made about 1,000. So we're even." Jack smiled, sad and grateful and fragile. "Same time next week?" he asked. "Every Sunday for a year. We had a deal." "Right. The conditions." He paused. "Thanks for those, by the way. For not just forgiving me outright, for making me earn it. You don't have to earn my love, Jack, but you do have to earn back your own respect. There's a difference." As he drove away, I stood on the porch watching his tail lights disappear down the long gravel drive. The wind picked up and Sarah's chimes finally sang. I like to think she was watching, that she saw us trying, that she was proud of us for not giving up. Or maybe I just needed to believe that. Either way, I went inside, made another pot of coffee, and allowed myself to hope that we might actually make it through this. Not unscathed, but together. 3 months later, Jack and I were on the dock again. Same ritual, same time. But everything felt different now. He'd been clean from gambling for 97 days. Penelope had finished chemo and was in remission. Maya had gotten early acceptance to 3 colleges and couldn't stop talking about marine biology programs. The company was stable. Jack was attending his meetings. We were talking, really talking. I brought something, Jack said, pulling a thermos from his bag. Coffee? Better. He poured 2 cups. Hot chocolate with marshmallows, like Mom used to make. I took a cup and the smell hit me. Sarah's recipe, cocoa powder, real vanilla, a pinch of cinnamon. Where'd you get the recipe? Maya found it in Grandma's old cookbook. We made it together last night. We drank in silence, watching the morning light spread across the water. I need to tell you something, Jack said finally. Here it was. The relapse, the confession, the thing that would break us again. Okay, I said carefully. I'm grateful. For the water. I stared at him. What? The water I threw in your face. I'm grateful for it. Because it was the bottom. The moment when I couldn't pretend anymore. When you couldn't ignore what I'd become. He set down his cup. If I hadn't done that, if you'd just kept enabling me, kept looking the other way, I'd probably be divorced by now. Or worse. Jack, I'm not saying I'm glad I did it. I'm saying I'm glad you didn't let it slide. That you fought back. That you made me face consequences. He looked at me. You saved my life, Dad, by refusing to let me destroy yours. I didn't know what to say to that. I'm proud of you, I said finally, for the work you're doing, for showing up every Sunday even when it's hard, for being honest with Penelope, for being the father to Maya that I should have been to you. You were a good father. I was a flawed father. There's a difference. Yeah, but you're still here, still trying. That's what matters. We sat with that truth while the sun climbed higher. Penelope wants to host Easter dinner, Jack said. At our house. She wants you there, front and center. I'd like that. Maya wants to invite that boy she's been seeing, the one from debate club. The one with the ridiculous hair. That's the one. Then we'll terrify him appropriately. It's our job. Jack laughed, a real laugh, unguarded and warm. And in that moment, I realized something. We were going to be okay. Not perfect, not healed, not free from the scars of what we'd done to each other. But okay. Better than okay, actually. We were family. Messy and complicated and still figuring it out. But family. Jack's line tugged. He reeled in another bass, bigger this time. Keeper? He asked. I examined it. Your call. He studied the fish for a long moment, then carefully removed the hook. Thank you, he whispered to it, for fighting, for reminding us what it looks like to survive. He released it back into the water. We both watched it swim away, strong, alive, free. You think Mom would be proud of us? Jack asked quietly. I thought about Sarah, about her laugh, her wisdom, her infinite patience with 2 stubborn men who loved each other but didn't know how to say it. Yeah, I said. I think she'd say, we finally figured it out. Figured what out? That love isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Jack nodded. We cast our lines back into the water, father and son, broken and healing together. And that's how a father and son saved each other. Not through revenge, but through the hardest thing of all, forgiveness. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that family is worth fighting for even when it hurts, then hit the subscribe button because there are more stories like this coming. Stories about real people, real pain, and real redemption. Smash that like button if you believe that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose love over pride. And drop a comment. Tell me about a time when someone forgave you when you didn't deserve it, or when you had to forgive someone who hurt you. Let's talk about what it really means to be family. Thank you for taking this journey with Zachary and Jack. Until the next story, stay strong, stay humble, and never be too proud to ask for help.